All right, everyone. That's left. Do me a favor and give me It's one of them days, man. It's one of them days. That's all I can tell you.
Hey, they happen.
I just sang that Monica song yesterday.
Really?
It was a remix though.
Okay.
My remix. Grand Rising, everybody. Choo, choo, choo. Can y'all hear me?
We hear you.
Just making sure.
We got you. All right. Grand Rising, Sheena Miles. Hope everything is well with you. All right, so time to read. I don't even know where we was at. Bounce. Are we on the?
We're in the middle of a paragraph in the last section
Of the attack, or?
Jeez. Oh, you said the attack. Hold on. Trying to make sure I didn't already have it up. Yeah, we were at let's see here. No, not the attack.
Yeah, right when the Natchez were living with some of the Choctaw, and they were about to invade the Choctaw to get rid of because they were allying the Natchez.
We'll find it. Oh yeah, we were that last paragraph above the historical interpretation section.
Okay.
And we were, I think, at the first sentence. We stopped after the first sentence.
Yep.
Got it. So, you want to read that? No, start out, or you want me to read it?
Yeah, I can read it right now. I got some time.
All right.
I'll just start the paragraph.
Okay.
All right, mic check. Everybody got it?
Yeah, we got you.
Peace, everybody. All right. The French continued to press for the destruction of the Natchez, who now lived among the Chickasaw, traditional allies of the British. This sparked the Chickasaw Wars. The Chickasaw, at first, agreed to drive out the Natchez from among them, but they did not keep good on the promise. Yeah. So in the Chickasaw campaign of 1736, the French, under Governor Bienville, attacked the Chickasaw villages of Apony and Akia, and then retreated, suffering significant casualties, but inflicting few.
All right, so go ahead. No, I was going to say I want to go ahead and look at because they have the Chickasaw campaign of 1736, and then they got the Chickasaw Wars, and then they talk about the Chickasaw campaign of 1739. That's 3 different wars. Grand Rising, Celestial Love, welcome back, Nine Ether. So let's go ahead and read that. So Chickasaw Wars. The Chickasaw Wars were fought in 18th century between the Chickasaw allied with the British against the French and their allies, the Choctaws and the Illinois Confederation. The province of Louisiana extended from Illinois to New Orleans, and the French fought to secure their communications along the Mississippi River. The Chickasaw, dwelling in northern Mississippi and western Tennessee, lay across the French path. Much to the eventual advantage of the British and the later United States, the Chickasaw successfully held their ground. The wars came to an end only with the French cession of New France to the British in 1763, according to the terms of the Treaty of Paris. So, this basically shows how instrumental the Chickasaw tribe was. It's funny because y'all do know that the Treaty of Paris was the same treaty that encompassed the War of 1776, the Independence War, right?
Yep.
It's the same war. So the Chickasaw were very instrumental in fighting the French and the British. That's interesting. Like No Sellout says, timelines. Alright, so.
And plus, it also shows a lot of these wars were Indian on Indian.
Mm-hmm. Which is sad, but like you always say, wars are fought by proxy. So, are we really surprised? I mean, I know we shouldn't be. I know I'll stop being surprised. So that was the Chickasaw War. So let's look at the Chickasaw Campaign of 1736 that No Sellout looked up, was reading. Oh, read it, came across. Chickasaw Campaign of 1736. Now this happened some 30 years before what they call the Revolutionary War. Chickasaw Campaign of 1736 consists of two pitched battles by the French and Allies against Chickasaw fortified villages in present-day northeast Mississippi, under the overall direction of the governor of Louisiana, Jean-Baptiste Lemonnier de Bienville. A force from upper Louisiana attacked Ogula Techtoka on March 25, 1736. A second force from lower Louisiana attacked Akia on May 26, 1736. Both attacks were bloodily repulsed. Then talks about the strategic situation. It says the French Empire of New France extended from New Orleans in the south to Canada in the north. Its unity was disrupted only by the presence of hostile Natchez and Chickasaw tribes in the lower Mississippi Valley. The French effort to reduce these hostile tribes and gain free passage along the Mississippi culminated in the Chickasaw Wars. Since 1716, the French and Chickasaw had united against the Natchez in an overt campaign of destruction. By 1736, the Natchez were killed or scattered, with many of them taking refuge among the Chickasaw. Bienville wanted to destroy these Natchez remnants and reduce the Chickasaw. It's absolutely necessary that some blood and remarkable blow be struck to impress the Indians with a proper sense of respect and duty towards us. He planned coordinated operations by two forces and under Pierre de Ortegal, commander of the Illinois District of Louisiana from the north, and a larger army under himself from the south. These forces were met at the Chickasaw villages on March 31st, 1736. Now, what they don't tell you, which basically what we learned on Friday, was that the reason why they needed the Chickasaw out, the Natchez out the way, was because those were our ancestors' builders. They built the roads, they built the buildings, they built the pyramids, they built the dams. So if you can get rid of the people, if you can get rid of who is in control of infrastructure, then it makes it easier to take over the land. So the last campaign I want to talk about is a campaign that happened 3 years after the 1736 campaign, which would then be the 1739 campaign. Kidding me. So 1739 campaign. It says, the Chickasaw Campaign of 1739 was a continuation of the Chickasaw Wars pursued by the French in Louisiana in 1739. The French prepared extensively but failed to engage the Chickasaw beyond some half-hearted skirmishing and finally accepted a negotiated peace. After the 1736 disasters of Ogula Techtoka and Akia, Upper and Lower Louisiana are still separated by the obstinate Chickasaw. The Choctaw applied relentless pressure by ambushing hunting parties and traffic on the trading to the South Carolina. Alternately, the Choctaw devastated croplands and livestock after using superior numbers to force the Chickasaw into their force. Under orders, Bienville immediately began to prepare his second grand expedition. Determined to remedy the lack of siege weapons and a coordination that had reunited his efforts, he obtained artillery, engineers and miners, and more soldiers. He planned for horses, meat on the hoof. He planned for horses, meat on the hoof, forts for staging of men and supplies, and roads to carry the army and its accoutrements. Bienville selected a route up the Mississippi River, this time after receiving assurance from an engineering survey that artillery could be transported overland from there to the Chickasaw villages. A supply depot was built on the west bank of the Mississippi River at the mouth of the St. Francis River. Fort Dale's Assumption was built across the Mississippi on the 4th Chickasaw Bluff at the Margot, present-day Wolf River, to receive men from throughout New France. Okay. Grand Rising Due to Vision, Grand Rising Nature's Void, Grand Rising Go to Moon, Grand Rising Charles Clark. Here's the thing I wanted to bring up a point. Judo says the Choctaw sold out because the Chickasaws was splitting from them. And sometimes in their haste to cover up information, they forget certain stuff. I'm going to go back up to the second paragraph, and I'm reading from the Chickasaw Campaign of 1739. And it reads, and I quote, "Under the orders, Bienville immediately began to prepare a second grand expedition determined to remedy the lack of siege weapons." Hold on. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's see. Yeah. Nope. It says, alternatively, the Choctaw devastated croplands and livestock after using superior numbers and forced the Chickasaw into their forts. So, Bones, I thought Chickasaw had teepees. What they doing with forts?
That's some other people.
So they had forts. They had physical structures that could withstand bombs and cannons. Another thing that I found pretty interesting is that they talk about, and where is it at? It says that Bienville selected a route up the Mississippi River, this time after receiving assurance from an engineering survey that artillery could be transported overland from the Chickasaw villages. Could this engineering survey be some of the Natchez? Or some of the Natchez that was part of
it? It would make sense. It would make sense.
That's just, I don't know, it just struck me funny when I saw that. I don't know. So they're using our own, I guess for lack of better terms, they're using our ancestors' own people against them.
Same thing that's going on today.
Yeah.
Use us against each other. Well, we jump out there to do it.
Yeah. Charles Clark says, now I can see what actually happened in Mississippi. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off, and we're back at the Natchez Revolt, and it says Bienville summoned more than 1,000 troops to be sent over from France. This is Bienville's army ascended the Mississippi River to the site of present-day Memphis, Tennessee, and attempted to build a military road westward towards Chickasaw villages. So, who's building these roads? Anybody? Anybody know? Because he got over 1,000 men or 1,000 soldiers from France. But he didn't say anything about having a French Corps of Engineers come over and do any survey or land building. Am I right or am I wrong?
Facts.
So he was using Indians to build these roads. Well, it says he was attempting to build a road, which goes to show that our ancestors were a lot more engineering than given credit for. Not that we should be surprised, but it just goes to show how history is manipulated. So then it goes on to read, after waiting for months in the winter of 1739 through 40, the French never mounted an attack and retreated back to New Orleans. So not only does it appear that the road wasn't built, but it appears that they retreated and went back to New Orleans to recoup. So this would be what, the Second War? This will be the Second War, Bones?
Uh-huh.
Man, there's some strong teepees. We need to find out what material these teepees made out of.
These invisible teepees at that.
Because now because they got these teepees looking like they said they were forts.
Oh, but they were building forts.
Oh, okay. So maybe they were forts covered by teepee coverings? No? Oh, never mind. I'm gonna continue to read.
Hold on, I most recently heard that Africans built forts. Wait a minute.
What?
My bad, never mind.
Say what? Come again?
I might have heard that in the wrong place. I heard Africans built forts or something, like 11 of them.
Ain't no Africans built no forts. What you talking about?
Okay, all right.
Well, where? Okay, so where are the forts in Africa? They built forts.
Oh, that I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning.
I mean, if they built forts, here, they would have built forts in Africa. And if they built forts in Africa, maybe they wouldn't have got stolen. Oh, but they didn't, because of 1880 happened 16 years after 1865, 15 years after 1865. So they couldn't have been enslaved when there was no colonies. Okay. Anyway, I digress.
That about right.
Then it says, after having suffered the attacks against the Chickasaw, the remaining Natchez moved on to living among the Cherokee and Creek people. By that time, the Natchez reduced to scattered refugees had ceased to exist as a political entity. Stop. So if they ceased to exist as a political entity, what were they before then? A political entity. Which basically means, from my perspective, and I could be wrong, won't be the first or the last time, that if you cease to exist as a political entity, that meant at one particular time you were a political entity and you had influence in the politics of New France.
Yep. Sounds about right. Yep. Uh-huh.
So why are we just not hearing about this, them being a political entity, when that ceased to be, or cease to have any existence, or cease to exist as a political entity? It's amazing how people try to cover stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it was
We just don't see it sitting over there in the corner.
Yeah. Looks like a bad or horrible copy and paste job. And I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first one or the last time. So, the division said the number one goal of the French was to destroy the Natchez. Without them, there is no army. Darn. You mean without the Natchez, there is no army? Or without the Natchez, or with the Natchez, the French have no army? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Either way, because they was the one building the roads and transportation.
Right. Okay. Alright, so we're going to go over there. Historical interpretation. I don't know why you need a historical interpretation if you're supposed to be reading it in English. But anyway. The Natchez Revolt figured as an event of monumental significance in French historiography, good grief, and literature of the 18th and 19th centuries. In France, the massacre and its aftermath was described in numerous historical works and inspired several works of fiction. 18th century historians generally attributed the Natchez uprising to oppression by Commandant Chépart. Oh, he said, Judas says, yes, without the Natchez, the Alabama have no army. Wow. So here's the thing I find interesting. It says in French historiography, the literature of the 18th and 19th centuries, that the massacre is all throughout their works of fiction. But it doesn't talk about the history of it. And the reason why,
they give you the recreated. They always give you the recreated romance story and leave the factual details out.
Because you could actually, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can do this after I get back to the house. I'm gonna see if I can actually go look up. Well, is anybody out there in the chat or a part of the silent majority? Go on the French. What is it? The French archives using Google. And then type in Natchez War or Natchez Revolt and see what you come up with. Because if you're using Google, then it will translate for you when you go to the French archives. Because if you go to French archives, of course, it's going to be French. So unless you speak French, you probably will not be able to read it. But if you put it in Google, then it will translate it for you. So I want to see if anybody can find out anything on the Natchez from the French archives, because that would be very interesting just to hear that account. So I'm moving on. In the French sources, one important discussion was centered on the question of whether the Natchez planned a simultaneous attack on the French. In the French sources, one important discussion was centered on the question of whether the Natchez planned a simultaneous attack on the French with other major tribes in the region. French colonial governor Etienne Pierre, in a report to superiors in France written 1 week after the revolt, claimed that many of the Indian nations in the lower Mississippi Valley had plotted with the Natchez to attack the French on the same day, and that even Choctaw, who had been close allies of the French, were part of the plot. Pierre had canceled a meeting with the Choctaw. Says he canceled a meeting with the Choctaw for the first 2 days, December in New Orleans, contending that it was to be the occasion for an attack. Pierre, in this way, defended his actions as governor by insinuating that the results of the massacre could have been worse if not for his prompt action. However, historians Gordon Seri and Arnaud Balvet have pointed out that Jean-Baptiste Delay, a militia commander in the French retaliations following the massacre, wrote in 1730 unpublished narrative that Pierre claims were groundless and that the Tio Yazoo and the other nations were not complicit and had no full knowledge of the attack. Another document in French of anonymous authorship, that don't even sound good. French anonymous authorship asserted that the Natchez Revolt was a British plan to destroy a new French tobacco business in Louisiana. How much credibility do y'all get at?
But you see, now that's the third narrative of this.
Mm-hmm.
You got one narrative that'll tell you it was African slaves revolting, which we know it was the Natchez Indians. We know this already. Now you're hearing about, so the British had. They're just rewriting it with romance. Get over it. You tell it so many times, you forget that the Indians were even there.
Yeah, that's true. But that's the whole goal, isn't it? Ohio player.
Yeah, they told you.
Ohio player put
Kill the Indian, stay the man.
Exactly. Ohio player put a link in the back chat. So, is that the French archives? Looks like it. So, I'll try to pull up in a second. I don't want to do too much and crash the system. That's why y'all don't hit Keanu Keys. It's rising. Let me go ahead and So the third paragraph reads that Francois René de Chateaubriand depicted the massacres in his 1827 epic Les Natchez, incorporating his earlier best-selling novels Atala and René into a longer narrative that greatly embellished the history of the French and the Natchez in Louisiana. In Chateaubriand's work, the grand conspiracy behind the massacre implausibly included narrative tribes from all across North America. Chateaubriand saw the Natchez Massacre as a defining moment in the history of the Louisiana colony, a position consistent with the views of other 18th century historians such as Lepage Dupras and Dumont de Montigny. So now we're looking at the embellishment of things. Then it goes on to read that the 19th century Louisiana historian Charles Gaillard also embellished the story of the conspiracy behind the Natchez Revolt, composing in his book a lengthy speech by the Great Sun in which the leader exhorted his warriors to invite the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Yazoo to join in the attack on the French. In 2008 book on the Natchez Revolt, Arnaud Belvet wrote that more likely than not, the conspiracy claim was false because of incoherence in primary sources. Because that bears repeating.